It's time for a special edition of House to Home. House to Home Senior Living is a special series to offer help and direction to those facing that next stage in life or those family and friends helping. House to Home Senior Living is brought to you by our friends at Rada Paint with support from Smooth Transitions and Orchard Crest Retirement Community. Here's your House to Home Senior Living host, Clyde Hawsey.
Welcome aboard to House to Home. I'm Clyde Hawsey. A section that we're doing on House to Home is called Senior Living. And you say, well, what does it have to do with House to Home? Well, it's the transition of your house into the home, the next stage of it. Now, as you do this, you need the professionals to join you. Dianna Carter of Orchard Crest has been joining me for the program before, if you were listening, and she is here again today. Thank you for coming along.
Thank you.
I guess we didn't scare her off, did we?
Nope.
Okay. You know, we had talked about some of the important questions that you should be asking prior to getting involved with someone where you want to put a loved one or yourself, and we had given you some good guidelines. And so basically, what were those two questions or two comments that we said? Ask the questions.
Ask the questions and be sure that you've included the person that's needing to look if possible.
Involve them in that decision. Very important. I have to be honest, I'll tell you again, my loved one, my mother-in-law is staying in their facility, and we did do the same process, and I will also add to it, it's conveniently located so we can come back and forth and not have an excuse why we didn't stop today. That's always going on. So with that being said, now let's say that we've made a decision where we're going to go.
Okay.
And in this particular case, that we decided on Orchard Crest, what is the next step in this transition from your house to your home now?
Well, the next thing probably would be pick an apartment and pick a date. So we start talking about timeline. We talk about, what are the challenges with moving? Are you needing some other additional resources like folks that can help because maybe I can't lift heavy things? Or do I need to hire a mover? Do I need to... what do I do about how do I change the mail? We talk about all those things. So we have lots and lots of resources for even things like, how do I transfer the phone or do I need a phone? Right. We go through all of those things. So we start talking about those things, come up with a timeline. And, if you've not come and had a meal, we say the day you've picked your apartment, that's another thing that we'll do then is come and have a meal if possible. And so you could be trying the food and really feel like, things are falling into place. The biggest challenge will be the fears of the person that's moving. So that's one of the things we really have to team with the family a lot of times that are involved is making sure that we're helping and supporting even if it's not in front of them but behind the scenes. So we might have a lot of conversations in between the day that they picked an apartment to the day that they move in and even that first week or two that they're living with us. So once you've picked the apartment, we usually sit down and we'll go over all of the costs that it's going to take to move in, whether there's a deposit, how much their monthly rent is, if they're adding services, what those costs will be. If they're going to need assisted care or help with us, we're going to do a whole complete more bunch of information so that we're ready for when they get there, which will then help our nurse to be able to do an assessment and be able to set their care plan in place for the care that we're going to do for them.
Now let me ask this question, Dianna. If we're downsizing, in which many cases people are downsizing, how do you work with the client, shall we say,
Sure.
if they ask, to get to the point when they're ready, okay, I think we're ready to move now?
We talk about what's important that they want to bring. And
Very important.
if they are someone that doesn't feel like they can do it on their own, we talk about that there are resources out there. Besides just a mover, there are people that specialize just in the downsizing and helping them to coordinate that kind of pack the things I'm going to bring and take care of the rest. Oftentimes it could be someone that's selling a home, or they might have been living in another type of living, like an apartment somewhere where it's become more difficult because it's not as senior friendly as someplace like us.
And let's be straightforward. In this particular case, I have a Fido, a dog, And in many cases, you need to be asking, is this
Right.
allowable and can it take place? And
Yep.
what are the guidelines for it? Is that correct?
You're right. A lot of places may not be pet friendly. Orchard Crest is, so they may have an associated deposit that goes with having a pet. Usually, one of the biggest rules or considerations is that person still capable of taking care of the pet. So we talk about that if there is a pet involved, making sure that if they want to bring it, they're capable of doing that. And if they're not, what can we do that still keeps them with the pet if possible? So we've
Right, 'cause
had
it-
family
yeah.
that takes the pet home with them
Well-
and brings it for visits.
Yeah. Well, the bottom line is many a times those small dogs are really their loved one.
They are. Their best furry friend.
Their best friend, and they keep on licking, right?
They do.
They keep on ticking. So-
We accommodate pets in a lot of ways. We have, in our community specifically, we have off-leash pet area, as well as we have cleanup stations all around the community. So, there are stipulations with a pet that are sometimes a challenge for some, and we work through those on an individual basis.
So when you're picking the right location to put the loved one along with their pet, you need to be asking those questions. What
Yep.
do you have available? And so I meant to ask that on
That's
the program
okay.
before because that's real important.
Right. You'll see if you had come for a tour, that probably would have been something that was discussed, and it's part of the literature that you would get when you're there. So that's another thing we didn't talk about is you're going to not just be talking, you'll come back with all the information that you would probably need as references.
Now, let me ask this question, and this is, maybe there's a dumb answer, but I don't think there is. So we have a single person moving into your facility. Do they need 2 bedrooms? Do they need an oversized? How do you begin to help identify what their needs are going to be?
Well,
Or is there a way?
I don't usually be that person that identifies that. It's usually them and their family, the person that's moving. So a place like Orchard Crest, we're pretty lucky. We have over 20 different floor plans that accommodates a lot of different needs. Other places might only have 1 or 2 different floor plans. So you're going to see, based on what you're looking for, you're gonna see it's not gonna be necessarily one size fits all for each person. We have some single people that want 2 or even 3 bedrooms,
Right.
which we have, or they might say, I don't really need anything bigger than a studio. I don't spend all my time in my apartments. I spend a lot out in the community being active and visiting my friends and in the coffee shop. So we have the ability to figure that out. As part of that, we're still in the...
What you're trying to say is we have a lot of flexibility,
We do.
and that's real important when you're making those decisions, folks. Flexibility to me is so important because when you're you're working with your loved one to move to a different location, you want to offer them the best environment that you can, that you feel is important. And they too want to have that same, because
Right.
transition to another night to put your head down and not feel comfortable is not good.
Right. And not only that, you want them to feel like this is their home. They bring their own personal items. So you want them to feel like it isn't just a bedroom if that's
Right.
not going to fit their needs. If there's someone that still likes to have family and friends over, we have some that have a formal dining room in their apartment. We have the ability to have a guest room, and you have guests come stay with you from out of town as your family comes to visit. So we have a lot of, everybody's worried that they're going to be limited. There is unlimited possibilities when
Well,
you move to a place like that.
What you're doing here, just talking about this today, is also people when they're putting together some questionnaires, write them down, but you're beginning to identify, ask about additional involvement if even if guests want to come and stay or out of town
Right.
guests, or if it's a case of eating.
Right.
Ask
Coming
those
for a
questions.
meal.
Right. You need to be asking those questions
Right.
as you're doing transition. Again, after making that decision that we're going to move to Orchard Crest, what are some of the additional items that when you're getting ready to sell the home or the apartment, you're going to move from that apartment, what are some additional things that you're going to help with in that transition, if you ask?
Well, we've had some people say, gosh, we don't even know what to do
Where do you
when
start?
it comes to what do we need? Now that we're making a change like this and they're not in their home, Are there things that we need to be thinking about? We do talk about a few things. When we do the move-in paperwork, there's a lot of things that come up. So we ask questions like, do you have already in place something like a power of attorney, an advance directive, a POLST form, which is a document that directs emergency services for what to do. We talk about, making sure that you have all of the information you need. What if I don't know if I want to be here long term?
Right.
We talk about those things. We talk about the lease agreement, and we explain that to you. We talk about, for those that are in our care, they have specific rights as a resident and a patient in our community. So we go over all those things, because the biggest thing that becomes a challenge is when we don't communicate or they don't get their answers to what their questions were.
Age-old issue. People do not communicate enough. They're afraid to answer. I didn't think about that question. Well, what you're telling me, Dianna, that you try to cover as many bases
Right.
as you can.
It can be really difficult, and the day you think it's going to be easy, it might turn around in 5 seconds.
It sounds like life in general,
Yep.
I find it very, very challenging one day at a time, but I've noticed working with you folks out there that we've had great success. She's been there for over a year, and we've enjoyed it. As I don't know if you picked up in the beginning, folks, but when I was talking in the beginning, I said, I want a place that I can get to quite easily and drive there and be there conveniently within a short period of time. And I was lucky. We found Orchard Crest because it has given us all of that. But the interest that your staff shows us is really beyond that. So as you're getting closer to that decision where to place your loved one or yourself, what are some of the other things that you should be considering?
Okay.
And how do they fit into the big picture?
Sure. Once someone's pretty much narrowed down, they've kind of chosen maybe 1 or 2 locations. If the person that's going to live there hasn't seen us yet, that's usually the next step, is bringing them and really making sure they've been included, not just...
That's a good point. Include them.
Yes, not just feel like they're kind of being dropped off at the door and you're going to drive off and...
Go off to school, right?
Exactly, because who would take their child to daycare without checking out the place? But then do you just drop them off at the door? Probably not.
Right.
And so that's a big important factor, is making sure they're part of the decision. Not always is that going to happen, and sometimes different health needs or crisis comes up that it doesn't make it that easy. But making sure if they had questions, they got answered, because their fears are going to be the biggest transition problem that comes up, is trying to overcome those. They remember the old nursing home their parents were in.
Oh, yeah.
And you're going to see even a nursing home today is nothing like that. We're very, very regulated as an industry when it comes to assisted or long-term care living. We really take an interest in the people, and so we are an ever-changing place. Residents, when they move into a place like Orchard Crest, have lots of really good ideas, and we include them as well. So you want to reassure them and tell them the things that you saw that were positive about a place, and then make sure that you get the chance to let them talk to other people that live there.
Okay, so what you're saying is that bring them over and have lunch or have just at a gathering and have them talk to other people. How do you enjoy this? I mean, if that's possible.
Well, I think a lot of people enjoy doing that. We have a very active group, even in our assisted living. When I have someone that comes in that's very fearful about having to take that next step to a place they're very thinking they would never need, that they'd always live for the rest of their life in their home, I think it's a little reassuring to feel like I've already made a friend before I've even said I'm going to move in. That's really important. We talk about a lot of things. What are their safety needs, whether they're independent or going to need assisted help. We talk about those things. We get a lot of information from family that has to do with who are emergency contacts, If they are coming to us for healthcare reasons, we have a lot of information we gather prior to that. But once they have come, we sit down and we really typically go over with either the new resident and or their family the cost of what that kind of living is going to be and make sure it's tailored to them. So what we do really is an individual care plan or individual decision, and probably making sure that we know what is going to fit them best.
You're kind of tailoring and bringing everybody together so they're both getting on the same bus, okay?
Yes.
Is that another way of saying it?
I would say short way, yes.
Bring them together so they both are going.
Right.
I've noticed and I'm right there, folks. I'm an old age person, but transition is really a hard one.
It is.
And it's not a funny situation.
No.
It's a very serious situation.
Right.
And I know in my particular case with my mother-in-law, her husband had passed away, so she is alone.
Right.
Now, all once you're going to put them in this environment that they know no one, right?
Right. So you want to kind of walk in their shoes a little bit and think about how they must feel. One of the things that I think a lot of people get comfort out of is they won't be making a transition like that alone. They not only have their family, but they have us to help with that. So, the things they've been struggling with, that's why we want to talk about those beforehand, so they aren't struggles when they get there. So if they've not been preparing meals very well, if they don't drive anymore and they feel like they've been a shut-in for a long time because of that, if they struggle with going out shopping because I have to rely on somebody else for all these things. Those are things we have ways that we can work with them and still keep them independent with those things.
Dianna, what you're describing is really a lot of things, a lot of feelings, a lot of quick thoughts, flash-by memories of what we've kind of all had to go through if we've lost a loved one or we have an older loved one that is going through these. And these are moments that we find out we're not alone.
No.
And this is nothing new for you, right?
No. And you would have to probably, I hear you talking with admiration for Orchard Crest. We become part of the family, and you become ours too. We're one big family when it comes to something like senior living and senior care. So you're going to see there's a whole team of staff that takes each a part in that. So we have anywhere from myself that does community relations and kind of helps families not only in that early process but through end of life. Sometimes they don't know what to do next. So we talk about resources, and I even do a support group for those families. We have, of course, a business office. We have somebody at the front desk that is like the concierge of our community, and that's the one-stop shop you go if I want to have a guest for a meal, or if I'm not coming for a meal, or we do a silent check-in every day to be sure that person is safe and okay every day. We have maintenance staff, we have dining staff, we have care staff. So we have a lot of staff that's really there in all facets of what someone's going to need. Biggest part of that is someone that does daily activities and keeping them busy with things they're interested in and active, whether it's with fitness or just things I love to do.
Or just being involved.
Yep.
Folks, again, I'm not trying to sell you that Orchard Crest is the only place.
No.
There are others out there. What I'm trying to educate our listeners to be is to ask questions, think ahead, transitioning either for yourself or transition of your loved ones,
Right.
or recommendation to someone who you may know through church or other involvement of other community activities. We are looking around, and so I want to help them out to ask those given questions.
Sure.
And I think that is so important. And I'm going to be just straightforward. You are the professional in this field. And many a times we don't know where to go.
It usually does start with a phone call from someone just telling someone, or they look online or in the phone book and they kind of start thinking, oh, maybe I should check this out. So, senior living is not something new, but I think how we run our business is a lot of times new because we change as seniors change. So the things that you need to know, you're going to find goes back and forth. We learn about you, you learn about us, and from there, each person, we kind of sit down and talk about then, like what's the overall going to move-in cost be, and what resources are going to be available, what are the things they're struggling with that they're going to need some extra help? What are the things families been having to do for them that, not that we're going to take over everything, but what things do they feel they can't live up to that day to day?
Well, I think that one of the things that what you're leading up to, and again, I don't want to take a lot away from, we don't have a lot of time yet to finish off this whole show just about senior living, because we're going to go into another program after this one, but I want to be saying, what are the highlights that from today? I'm trying to pass on education to our listeners. What are the 1 to 2, 3 points that we want to bring across at this point?
Well,
ask questions.
Yes, definitely ask questions. Be observant. How do they make you feel? Is it a place where you feel like you're being sold something, or is it a place you freely get to be part of the asking questions and not really feeling like you're going to be pressured to do something you're not ready to do? Some people, when they come, it might be they're moving within a week or two, and others it might be a few years down the road. So just know that it's not meant to be, it's a come in, I bought something at the store and I'm putting it in the shelf. It's really about building a relationship and making sure that there's going to be the trust you need and the ability to meet the needs of the person that you're worried about or the person that's looking.
Asking the questions that are going to pertain to you or your loved one, and again, involve them, if it isn't yourself, but your loved one, in those decisions. And those are going to help you to build and how you're going to bring it all together to that end location. And in this particular case, at Orchard Crest, I had to be honest with you folks, I know I'm being a little bit prejudiced, but there's a lot of other good places, but you've really filled that bucket. Right. I didn't know how it began because when we came to 1.5 years ago, we were finding out that we had some prior experiences were not the best, and we were trying to fill some of those needs, and caring is the most important part, and showing the love and also providing the love for those clients of yours that are within your bounds. That's what we're going to be trying to do here on House to Home, is to provide our listening audience with more information as they move forward. I want to say at this time, Dianna Carter, thank you for coming from Orchard Crest, because as you can see, I'm excited about it.
Thank you.
You're going to have to come back and see us next time, folks, as we move forward into another level of House to Home senior living. And we're going to come back and spend some more time with you, Dianna, and get more information. So until the next time, I'm Clyde Hossie. We'll see you then.
See you tomorrow night, and thanks again for taking care of the painting.
I got this.
Bye.
Weekends are made for painting. Let the experts at Rada Paint take care of you.
Hi. This looks amazing.
Rada Paint, over 80 years of quality, tradition, and trust. Find it in every can.
House to Home is produced in Spokane, Washington by SpokaneTalksOnline.com, which is solely responsible for its content. Ask Clyde a question, recommend a guest, and watch this program again online anytime at SpokaneTalksOnline.com. House to Home Senior Living is brought to you by our friends at Rada Paint, with support from Orchard Crest Retirement Community and Smooth Transitions. We wish you a great day.